Welcome to the Business of Beauty, where we make all things beautiful our business. Do you know why gut health is so important? Well, how do you achieve a healthy gut? Today we're talking about homeopathic treatments and how it can help you look and feel and even perform your best. I'm so excited to have with us today from Living Free Naturally, holistic health coach, my dear friend and health coach, Sarah Thompson. So Sarah uses actually interactive approach to healing the body naturally and to be able to focus on ridding the body of inflammation of the gut health. So we're going to go all over the guts of the gut today and why it's so important. So welcome with us today, Sarah Thompson. So thank you so much, Sarah, for joining us. I'm super excited for you to share a little bit about yourself, Sarah, and you can find Sarah on Living Free Naturally with Sarah on her Facebook page. So thank you so much, Sarah. Hey.
Thank you so much for having me, Joe. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Oh my gosh, I love the lip color. I would love seeing what you got going on. So thank you so much for joining us today. I am super excited to just get right into the guts of things, but also just go ahead and give us a little bit of feedback about what it is to be a holistic coach.
Oh, sure. Like Joe said, I'm a certified holistic health coach, and kind of what led me to this path is I had my own personal health crisis about 10 years ago, a little over 10 years ago now. And it was an issue of an immune function. And the doctor had basically told me that my only option was basically to be on medication for the rest of my life. And I grew up in a fairly healthy home, but I knew enough about the body to know that there had to be another answer, right? Like our bodies were designed to heal themselves. So that kind of set me on my own quest, if you will, of just really studying nutrition independently, learning about for myself personally what foods worked well and promoted healing, what foods did not promote healing. And really it's kind of like anything in life, right? Like the more that you learn about it and realize that, oh my gosh, this is information that people need to know. Like it was something that I started to want to share more. And so that led me to going back to school. I went to the Institute for Integrative Nutrition out of New York and received my certification through there and started my health coaching practice. And I also have a health and wellness business with Arbonne, which is botanically based personal care and nutrition products that I really integrate into my coaching as well.
Well, it sounds like such an awesome blend. I love that you had touched on the immune issues that you've had. I mean, not that you've had them, but that you've been able to find a way to help yourself and helping others through that. And, you know, what a great blend. Like, I know that's where we met through Arbonne, and I love that we're able to help that, but just to dig in deeper. And so I love that you're going to touch over how we can do that and get even healthier, you know, from the inside out. So
absolutely. Yeah, I have been able to be completely medication free from the beginning. So there is hope for sure.
That is awesome. So if you're joining us today and you want to know a little bit about how you can also be medication free, maybe you have issues too. So thank you for joining us today. Sarah, let's just get right into it. So why is it so important? What is it to know? I mean, you know, we hear a lot like, oh, you just know in your gut. And so sometimes you're so toxic, people don't know how to listen to their gut. So why is it so important? Like what's going on with our gut?
Yeah, well, let's start with like what gut health is, right? Can we break down like the digestive system? Because I feel like if you can get more of an understanding of your digestive system and how the body works, it can kind of make a little bit more sense, right? And gut health, it's such a buzzword in the health industry now. So like people are like, what even is gut health, right? So, and if we can understand how the gut works, it really can help us just keep things running more smoothly. So with the digestive process, a lot of people don't even realize that it actually begins in the mouth, right? Our food actually, as we start chewing, our saliva secretes digestive enzymes. So it actually starts with the breakdown in our mouth, right? So we start chewing. You really should chew your food about about 20 times. You want it to really get to it, those small particles where it's almost like liquid-like. You don't have to count, but just, chew.
Oh man, I was already counting. Okay, how many times? Tell me the number.
Sometimes, I was actually taught as a kid to count. It's really funny, but when your food is swallowable, right? So then it goes to the esophagus, and that's what connects, between the mouth and the stomach. It starts the swallowing process. And then it gets into the stomach, where the stomach secretes acids and peptic enzymes, which further dilute and break down that food, right? Which we're going to touch on this because, you think stomachs and you hear acidic, and do we want acidic? Do we want alkaline? We want our stomach to have those good, healthy acids in it, because that's where it starts breaking it all down and really killing off the majority of bad bacteria in food. And so our stomach is kind of like our first line of defense for fighting off bacteria. Again, the bad bacteria, because we're going to talk about good bacteria too. Cool. And then we have our small intestine, and that's that narrow tube that here's where like the major food groups, like your proteins, your fats, your carbs, your macros, right? They're all broken down into amino acids, sugars, fatty acids. Those are then absorbed into the bloodstream. And then it gets down into our colon, or our large intestine, right? And this is where basically all the unabsorbed material from the small intestine goes through here. It extracts salt, water from the contents, has trillions of colonic bacteria that actually helps with like the unabsorbed sugars and starches and proteins. So it's this huge process, right, that really contributes. And then you've got your pancreas, your liver, and your gallbladder. And I won't get into all that nerdy stuff, but
is that another show?
Yeah, that's another show, right?
So the gut has to do a lot.
Yes, it's, when you're considering the digestive system, we also hear the term like microbiome, right? And that is really what we're concentrating most for the healthy gut is making sure that microbiome is really, really healthy, because it's such an integral internal ecosystem, right? And when you think about even the term microbiome, micro meaning small, and then biome meaning that it has a habitat of living things. So it has a lot going on, but it's this really small part of the body, but really touches and extends such a far reach in all of the body. So what is gut health is really having that healthy gut microbiome of that balance of good bacteria and bad bacteria, and really working together for boosting immunity, making sure our digestive system is running smoothly, reducing inflammation, getting our body pH balanced. It has so many benefits and functions.
So how do we keep it healthy? Like what are ways that we can do? Because I know say these words, but there's people on here that I've never heard about. Like this is the first time they've jumped on, and they're like, what do you mean? Like keep your gut healthy. So how do we break that down for everyone to say like, okay, maybe you are a little healthier. Maybe you have no idea what the heck we're talking about today. So where do we start for people to know how do you get your gut healthy? Because I've heard all these terms too, like leaky gut. All these terms that get thrown around, and like you had mentioned, having for yourself in the beginning while you started looking, like immune issues. And as we've coached other people too, like I'm sure you've come across that too. So how do we help people that are having this leaky gut?
Yeah, so many issues surrounding the gut and gut health really starts with the food that we eat, right? And really determining food sensitivities. And every body is different. We're all genetically predisposed to different things, right? And food sensitivities develop over time. But I think the first and foremost place of starting for figuring out how to improve gut health is really concentrating on an elimination diet and determining food sensitivities. Some common food sensitivities are gluten, dairy, soy, corn, sugar, and all those, interestingly enough, all those contribute to affecting our gut health in a negative way. Dr. Mark Hyman, I'm sure that you've heard of him. He's I love him. He's one of my favorites. He's so respected in the health industry, and he actually did a study on 55 diseases that gluten can cause. And
Wow.
some of those, gluten alone, just gluten, right? And gluten, as we know, is the protein that comes from wheat products. And the reason why gluten, we won't get into like all of gluten because that's totally another show. But the reason why gluten can wreak havoc is because it's basically now the majority of wheat in the U.S. comes from genetically modified organisms. So it's frankenfood that our body does not know how to break down, right? Mm-hmm. But in this study, which Dr. Mark Hyman did, some of the diseases on that list were migraines, headaches, right? Anxiety, depression, dementia, even autism. Wow. And what's so interesting about that, when you think about it, is antidepressants, they are the number 2 prescribed class of medication in the U.S.
Wow.
Let's just think in for a minute. It's huge, right?
Yeah.
And you and I were talking about mental health and how much that is being affected from all ages, right? I mean, from young to old. Our children are battling with mental health and depression and anxiety and thoughts of suicide. I mean, it's really become an epidemic. And we look at our foods, that's really our starting place, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's always been like the carrier. We've been taught that. And so now that you're faced with, diseases or like the aftermath of making these choices, you're like, okay, what now? So there is hope for people that have just been years of not knowing any better. So now that we know better, and do years and years of this, because I was actually chatting with a girlfriend yesterday and reminded me of this, like years and years of things happening and that we equate it to age. Oh, we're just getting older. Yeah, and I find like now that I know better, I'm like, oh, why do we say that when it's just so wrong? It's really, you keep putting stuff in and you're going to have to deal with the aftermath of like overflowing your bathtub, with all these things.
Absolutely. And there is definitely a difference between like food allergies and food sensitivities, right? Food sensitivities are something that we can develop. And a big way that we develop food sensitivities is by having the same thing over and over and over again. So you would think like, well, what, you become immune to something that you are exposed to over and over again. Well, actually, it's the opposite when it comes to food sensitivities. So you think about, for example, how many of us grew up eating cereal every single day? Right? Like for breakfast. That's how we started our morning, with a wheat-based or a corn-based cereal, right? And you're having it every single day. And that's really where food sensitivities come into play. You really want to be getting like a balance of nutrients and having a diversity of nutrients in your diet.
So learning how to have that balance.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And creating diversity and variety in your diet. And, understanding too with food sensitivities, a lot of people, there's so many symptoms that we're all facing right now, right? Between, oh my gosh, like acid reflux, IBS, indigestion, bloating, diarrhea, constipation. So many people think that this is like normal, right? Like, and it's so interesting to me when okay, so something about me that you, Joe, I think but probably a lot of people don't know, is that I'm from a family of 12. And 8 of my siblings are brothers. So I grew up with just brothers until later on. I had sisters, which was awesome, but they're 10, 12, and 19 years younger than me. So just me and a bunch of boys, right? So, I don't know if it's from my upbringing with boys or from my love of health, but I always say like, every good conversation should include poop. So just rip off the Band-Aid right there.
So now we're getting into the show, guys.
Yeah. Here we go, the nitty gritty.
We're talking about poop in your gut today.
Yes, because it's really indicative of what's going on, right? And
totally.
Yeah. And one of the first questions that I asked my client is how regular they are. And I've learned to have to kind of even tweak that and just be very specific, like how often do you go number 2? Because many people go every, 2 to 3 days, and they think that that's regular because it's regular for them, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's so not regular. You want to be eliminating basically after every big meal. So at least like 2, maybe 3 times a day, at the bare minimum, going 1 time a day, right? But again, to bring that point, like these symptoms that we're all facing, they're not regular. They're basically symptoms are warning signs telling us that something is going on in the gut. Mm-hmm. And that is where the majority of our health all takes place, is in the gut.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love how you mentioned too, like migraines was a big thing for me. And when I did the elimination diet, that was the first time in my life I finally was like, okay, not only are you getting results, but I've never felt this good. And I used to always have to take a migraine pill all the time, like pop these pills every month, and was so reliant on medication, and basically is that Band-Aid thing, like not dealing with the really like issue of it, until I had done the program you talked about, like doing the 30-day program and eliminating some things and finding not only that I felt better, but as I started putting in things into my diet, I don't know if you've seen this, like I started like realizing red flags, like not feeling good, instant headaches coming on, and saying, oh, wow, like what, this is insane that you can actually listen to your body. So these are ways you can listen to your gut as well. Like it's telling what it's telling you.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's, I mean, not even just how we feel, like, as far as like joint pain. And like I said, all those other things that affect our digestive system, but even our mood, right? Mm-hmm. Like even the foods that we eat can really, right? Like really affect our mood. And I mean, I notice, and my husband, he has a gluten sensitivity. And when he has gluten, the next day I'm like, oh, honey, you need to take a nap or something. Yeah. Like it really impacts our mood, which is really so interesting. I believe it was in 1967, they did a study on patients that were in a mental ward for schizophrenic. And they actually, have you heard of this study?
I think I read this in Wheat Belly, a book that I read about something. But so as you're talking about it, it's reminding me. Okay, so will we tell this story and then we have a question?
Yeah. So they, what they did is they actually removed gluten from their diet, wheat from their diet, and noticed a huge improvement in their symptoms. And many of them were able to actually be cleared and released. But then they also did a test on some patients, putting it back in, and noticed that their symptoms actually went back and even increased. So, when you think about like schizophrenic, you think like, well, that just must be how someone is born. But what is contributing to that, right? And it's really our immune system and our gut that is just so being devastated by the foods that we're eating. So I know you said we had a question.
Yeah, I believe we have a question from April Rogas. So any advice for nonverbal kids on the autism spectrum who have lots of allergies and sensory aversions to certain food textures? So is there some way I know that that's a big thing too with a lot of kids, like not open to trying new foods. Like what would you suggest for her, for April, for her son?
I mean, that definitely can be challenging, especially on the autism spectrum, because there's, you're really working on communicating with those children and helping them understand. One of the biggest things with food sensitivities and really determining what they are is, what are the foods that your little one is reaching for every day out of the pantry? Mm-hmm. Those, it's really interesting because typically the foods that we crave are the foods that we're actually sensitive to. So really starting to pay attention to those foods that they're gravitating towards and seeing about making small improvements from those.
Mm-hmm. It looks like she said her son is allergic to peanuts, cow's milk, and eggs. So craving those things, or you're just asking like, maybe is that like, are there other ways that we can, or foods that we can give him, or?
Yeah, so other foods, obviously from peanuts, are trying cashew butter or almond butter. Peanuts are really toxic, so they're prone to growing mold and having a lot of toxins in them. So really, I advise peanuts that's something I advise that pretty much everybody stays away from. Cashew butter, I find, is the closest creaminess and texture and taste that kind of is a good alternative to like peanut butter. Almond butter is another option. It's a little bit denser and thicker. As far as cow's milk, April, when you think about cow's milk, first of all, cow's milk is designed to take a 65-pound calf to 1,000-pound full-grown cow in a year. Like, think about the hormones and all that is in that milk to grow. Isn't that incredible?
That's crazy. My mind's still chewing on that right now.
Right? Right. And so, you think about when we have a glass of milk, how many hormones and all that's involved in that milk and what it's doing for us. So, an alternative to cow's milk would be obviously, nut milks are great options. There's so many options now with almond milk, coconut milk, cashew milk. Cashew milk, again, has that real creamy texture. I definitely advise staying away from soy milk because, again, like wheat, the majority of soy crops are genetically modified, and it mimics estrogen in the body and can completely disrupt our hormone levels. So I definitely advise staying away from soy milk, but almond milk, cashew milk, coconut milk, those are some great options.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we replaced the soy in our house with coconut aminos. I actually prefer it too now. Yes. Like, soy is a little too salty to me now. Like, I'm kind of just changed your palate as you change your life, right? So
yeah, absolutely. That's what's so fantastic is we do have so many more alternatives out there that can actually, again, those foods that are going to promote gut health and promote reducing inflammation. So I know we talked about like what you wanted to know, like what are things that we can do to improve our gut health, right? So a big part of that would be eliminating foods that are acidic, foods that are allergenic and addictive, right? Again, gluten, sugar, dairy, those are some major triggers. Getting rid of refined carbohydrates and processed foods. Conventional meat, when I say conventional meat, like conventional meat now is majority of poultry and cow are being fed a grain diet. Again, it's back to those genetically modified soy and grain corn diet. And those are what that results in is a high in omega-6s. So when you concentrate on pasture-raised meat, pasture-raised poultry and eggs, then you're getting those good omega-3s. Reducing sugars and like those refined vegetable oils like canola oil, corn oil, soybean oil, concentrating more on like avocado oil, coconut oil that has a good healthy fat. Getting fresh vegetables. One of the things that I say that if there are 3 things that we can do to turn around our health in the US is to drink more water. Water is, you think about water, it creates motility in the digestive system and gut health and just keeps everything moving, right? The second would be to eat more fresh vegetables, specifically green leafy greens. And those are loaded with phytonutrients that are going to help lower cholesterol, triglycerides, symptoms of rheumatoid arthritis, Alzheimer's, cancer, cardiovascular diseases, diabetes. I mean, it just goes on and on, right? And then implementing a prebiotic, a probiotic, and a digestive enzyme. That is going to be huge for improving your gut health.
What do you want to look for in a probiotic and prebiotic? Because that's like another term we throw around that a lot of people don't know what the heck that even means or what to look for. Can you share with us?
Yeah, absolutely. So a prebiotic and a probiotic. So a prebiotic, basically the simple answer is the prebiotic is what is going to basically cultivate the environment in your microbiome for when you take probiotics to create that good, healthy bacteria. So prebiotic really helps to get your probiotic down into your lower intestine, which is where your gut health is and where your gut is, where you want it to reside. And so incorporating those along with a digestive enzyme that helps to break down food is really key. That's one of the reasons why I absolutely love Arbonne's Digestion Plus product is that it has the prebiotic, probiotic, and digestive enzyme all in one. And it's actually formulated to get into your lower intestine, which is really huge and really key for helping and promoting. What's that?
Yeah, like you touch on how it's super important, because I know that's something that has been explained to us as coaches, and I'm like, okay, I know it's super important, but maybe you can go a little bit more in depth into having what to look for, as far as like people ask me all the time, how many millions or probiotics they should be looking for in a probiotic, and I know I think we have millions in the arbonne one,
Right.
but so that's something that you want it to withstand the acids in your lining?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So lactobacilla is it helps to bind and detoxify metals. So that's something really, really important to look for in it. And it also helps to bind arsenic from water and flush that. It helps with the detoxification process. And so you want it to be living and live. And we also can get those from live foods and cultures as well.
What are other foods that they can take for how you can get it?
Yeah. So some of them would be like, for example, kombucha, kefir. There's kefir. That is something that you can actually get in non-dairy options, which is great because a lot of kefir is made in dairy, but you can actually get it in coconut water, which is really great. Sauerkraut, kimchi, fermented vegetables, basically really anything that's fermented. Raw apple cider vinegar is a great way. Sourdough, something that's really fascinating about sourdough. So that is fermented. And so because of the fermentation process, it actually ends up being generally naturally gluten-free. So if you're looking for a gluten-free bread option, obviously there's so many gluten-free options out there now, but if you're looking at sourdough, if it's fermented sourdough, then it actually is gluten-free naturally. And olives, roots and ginger beers, those all have those good probiotics in there. So there's so many great options for really getting probiotics from the foods that we eat as well. I think that because of the mineral content in soil and our growing processes and our soil turnover is not the same, so our nutrients from our foods is not as great. And that's where supplements are so key, where you're bringing in those prebiotic, probiotic, and digestive enzyme supplements as well to really aid in just ramping up that gut health.
Awesome. So the foods that we're eating, water, what would you suggest for people that don't like water? Like how I know that we come across that a lot. For me, it's no problem. I drink way more than I'm supposed to be daily. But for other people that are like, okay, you say the meats that we're eating, the water, fresh veggies, and the probiotics and prebiotics, but what do you do when you don't like water?
Okay, well, so water, we really want to be getting half of our body weight in ounces of water. So let's say, just easy math, say you're 200 pounds, you want to be drinking about 100 ounces of water a day. Okay. So there's some tricks that you can do with that. I do have clients ask me, well, there's water in coffee and there's water in soda and there's water in tea. Like, aren't I getting water that way? Well, coffee, soda, black tea, they're all diuretics. So they're actually dehydrating you, right? Mm-hmm. And the average American really is not getting enough water and is actually dehydrated. So really it comes down to, you got to have water. Like you can add things to water, which is fantastic. So for example, lemons and limes. A lot of people, we do that at restaurants, right? Especially to cover up the grody restaurant water. The taste.
Yeah. It's so true.
Right? Yeah, you're like, so putting water in lemon in your water, and lemon actually is alkaline forming. So helping getting your body pH balanced, helps your body your cells to absorb the water easier. But you can do like agua fresca. I love doing that with like cucumbers or strawberries or mint, just having your pitcher of water, throwing in some chopped fresh fruits or vegetables that you like the flavor of, sticking in your fridge. That is honestly, I think, one of the best ways to help transition our kids off of juices.
Yeah.
Especially juice is is pasteurized. So it's heated. So it basically takes anything good out of it, and all you're left with is the sugar. If you look at a can of soda compared to a glass of juice, basically the sugar content is going to be about the same. It's somewhere in between 25 to 30-ish grams of sugar. So doing that, making the agua fresca. Also green tea. If you're looking at a substitute for water that is, not water, green tea would act as that. So you could use your green tea content, how much green tea in your ounces per day. But really, what I like to do is just break it down and make it like really palatable and easy. So I have some clients that they'll figure out how many ounces that they need to have, and they'll set out that many water bottles on their counter and drink those. Like water bottles average, like 16.9 ounces, right? So dividing it. I have a 32 ounce water bottle. So I know that if I drink 2 of those a day, then I'm good. And I kind of trick myself. So I will treat myself once I finish my 32 ounce bottle, then I get to have something else to drink. So Arbonne, we have a energy fizz stick, which is made up of B12 vitamins, chromium. It has green tea, guarana, rhodiola, helps with mood improvement, and really just natural energy versus, the spike and crash that occurs with, like, say, a coffee, a soda, energy drinks in general that are filled with caffeine and sugars. So that's how I treat myself. Like I have to drink my 32 ounces, and then I get to have my energy fizz stick. Another great way is when you wake up in the morning, the first thing you do is go in, brush your teeth, and then have a glass of water, like 8 ounces of water. And that just gets everything moving, and you're feeling awake and alert, and you can start your miracle morning that way.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. That reminds me too of Digestion Plus question, because a lot of times you get that with your probiotic. When is the best time to take it? When you're drinking first thing in the morning, or is there a best time to take it?
Honestly, taking it is just just taking it, right? And so key, honestly, we could get so caught up in what time to take our vitamins, what time to take our probiotics, but really the key is taking them. I personally, I like to start my day by taking them, and then, so I'll have my Digestion Plus, Arbonne's Digestion Plus is a powder packet. So you add it to 2 to 3 ounces of water. You take it like a shot and you're done. There's no swallowing pills. You're not having to refrigerate it. It's really great. It's a fantastic product. It's honestly one of my favorite probiotics that's out there on the market that I've come across. Mm-hmm. So I like to take that and then maybe have my breakfast 20 to 30 minutes after. But also, let's say, for example, you've had a meal, you've had a steak, an animal protein that is a lot more work for our body to digest than a plant protein, right? Mm-hmm. I'll take another one then, just to really give my body that extra boost to really help it do what it needs to do naturally. Mm-hmm. So whether it's morning, afternoon, lunch, dinner, really whatever it is, just as long as you're taking it is key.
Okay, awesome. I love that you mentioned the meat breakdown, because I wrote that down. I'm like, I didn't want to forget when you talked about that with the whole chewing and everything. I remember as a kid, they would tell me, chew this many times for meat and chew this many times for vegetable and stuff. So is there something to be said about that? Is there a certain amount, and it's taking your Digestion Plus when you do have meat is another way to help it break down?
Absolutely.
Is there a certain amount of times throughout the week that you should be having meat, like red meat or other types of meat that you would suggest?
That's really a great question, Joe. Especially, vegan and vegetarian diets, people have really started to gravitate towards that, and that's definitely becoming more of a trend, right? And I don't necessarily coach a vegetarian or vegan diet unless somebody has a specific health need for that, unless there's personal convictions coming into play and all that, right? But what I do definitely believe is that in the US, we consume way too much animal protein, way too much, between dairy products, between animal proteins, beef, chicken, fish, eggs. It's too much. I mean, we have become to where we're basically having animal proteins every single meal. We start off our morning with eggs. We have lunch with a sandwich with some sort of processed meat product. And then we feel like we have to have some sort of animal protein on our plate at night, right? Do you find
growing up, you had to have meat and potatoes and where's the beef?
Yeah.
When did you notice that, right?
Yeah. So honestly, there are so many incredible plant plant-based proteins out there. And I don't mean necessarily just in the supplement form, but really in the foods that we're eating, right? Beans and legumes, that is such a great source of plant-based proteins that are really much easier for our body to digest and absorb. Because at the end of the day, what it really comes down to is not just what we're eating, the foods that we're eating, but actually what we're absorbing. And again, going through the digestive system into our gut health and our body pulling those good nutrients from the foods. Because if we don't have a healthy GI tract and a healthy gut health, then really you could be spending your money on the cleanest meats, the cleanest foods, buying organic, right? And then if your body, though, if your gut is not healthy, your body's not absorbing those good nutrients. And so you're not getting the full benefit of that diet that you're really concentrating on. Does that make sense?
Wow, I just had this total aha moment with that. Like, that's so true, because it's going right through you. You know, they say like you take too many vitamins, and if you take too much, it's going through you. So if you're saying basically if your gut isn't healthy, it's not consuming the right nutrients it's supposed to be taking, even from the right foods. So you're basically not doing it any good.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, on one hand, you're not necessarily doing any good, because at least you're not doing any harm, right? By having
those. You're not hungry anymore.
What's that?
You're not hungry anymore, you're saying?
Yeah, you've solved that problem, right? But you're definitely not absorbing those nutrients. And that's where, you know, you bring up, that brings up fiber. Fiber is another key nutrient that the majority of Americans have a fiber deficient diet, right? And fiber plays such a huge role in gut health as well, because what fiber does is it really helps to, it kind of acts like a sponge. So when you think about eating foods that are high in fiber and you're getting your fiber supplement, it's like a sponge that's going through your GI tract, going through your intestines, and really just, I told you I talk with my hands, so here I go. So it goes through your GI tract, and it really is like a sponge, and it cleans out your GI tract, because your GI tract, your intestinal lining has these like hair-like follicles. And when we eat food, these follicles, they absorb the nutrients from the food. And if you think about, you mentioned earlier, Joe, cleaning the drain. Well, if you think about your GI tract like a drain, so for example, like let's think about our bathroom sink. You brush your teeth, you spit down the drain, hair gets down it, soaps come, right? It starts to get clogged, and it doesn't drain as efficiently. It might even start to bubble up and bubble over. And that's when you gotta pull out the snake and get it cleaned out, or use like, Drano, you know, and clean it out, and it eats up all that nasty stuff. Well, that's basically what needs to happen in the body. And fiber is what helps to do that. Fiber and probiotics, again, help to do that and clean out our drain so that those little follicles are free to really absorb and grab the nutrients from our food. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally makes sense. That's an awesome way to bring it. I love the visuals in the hands. Works for me. I'm visual.
Good.
We have a couple comments I noticed here. Jeremiah says that I don't think milk agrees with me anymore. So is that possible too? Then when people like build up an intolerance later to something, I know that happened with my husband that Jason said on here too. He got later on in his 30s, he became allergic to peanuts. So how does that happen? Like where people are okay with something and then all of a sudden they're not? Is that because of the drain being overstuffed or just?
Yeah, and also like we talked about too, the foods that we eat frequently we develop food sensitivities for. So like how many of us, I mean, I'm a product of the 80s, right? Like I'm a child of the 80s where got milk, and you know, you're told to have milk with every single meal. I mean, we literally, I don't know about you, but I grew up with milk at every single meal. We had a milkman that delivered. You have milk at school. I mean, still milk is being served to our kids at school. And if as a parent, you don't want your kids having dairy, there's a lot of pushback still from school with you not having dairy, because it has just been so pushed down our throats. And honestly, I mean, I won't get too far down this rabbit trail, but that food pyramid that we were all taught, right? That consists of meat, dairy, and grains. Did you know that food pyramid was actually created and designed by head leaders in the dairy, meat, and grain industry? Shocking, right?
Wow.
Yeah. Things that make yeah.
I call it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And actually there was a big lawsuit in the 90s about that. But we don't hear about that. It doesn't get trickled down to us. So Jeremiah, as far as dairy and having that food sensitivity, again, concentrating on healing the gut is going to help with food sensitivities. And really, when you have when you're concentrating on improving the gut, for really, it's more than a matter of 30 days. I love Arbonne's 30 Days to Healthy Living program because it is an elimination diet. So we get rid of those foods that are interfering with our gut health, interfering with the way that we feel, and cleaning up. It's bringing in all those good nutrients to support gut health, reducing inflammation, getting the body pH balanced, getting rid of toxins. And it's really that launching pad. But so many of us have destroyed our gut health through years of processed foods and the way that we eat, but also antibiotics. Joe, did you know that just one round of antibiotics is enough to kill and destroy your gut health, where it takes, and that healthy gut microbiome that we talked about, to where it takes a full year of concentrated gut health to really get your gut back to that healthy state?
Wow, that's huge.
So when you think about how many of our kids have been on, and adults too, but they get on a round of antibiotics, right? But it doesn't work. They don't get rid of the ear infection or whatever's going on. So then they're on round 2 of antibiotics and round 3 of antibiotics. And we're wondering why our gut health is destroyed, right? Like antibiotics have become the answer to the common cold, when really our body knows how to heal itself. And it just needs a little bit of time and the right nutrients. But we want to get back to work. We want to get back to school, right? But really, what do we want? Do we want to concentrate on our gut health and our long-term, like longevity of health, or the here and now, right?
So basically destroying it. And so in that sense, like if you're taking it and say now you've brought it back up to the health and now it's healthy, now what? Like, what do you do then to maintain it from years of aftermath? Because I know for myself, I was a product of, my mom, same thing, going to the doctors all the time. She had all these antibiotics, anything you can think of. And we joked about it. Like, oh, here's Mama Viegas, Dr. Viegas, what's wrong with you? Open up the cabinet and here you go. So it was, oh, you have a little cold. Here's your antibiotics. And I would just take it, and then they wouldn't work for me anymore later on, or you become immune to it. So, there's a place for it, and it's just not always reach for that first. It's let's try this first, the probiotics. And so
Absolutely.
So water and all those things, like the fresh veggies. And
concentrating on really bringing in those good foods, those living live foods, concentrating on those probiotics. Vitamin C is a huge immune system booster. I mean, that is like the powerhouse, right? So getting a diet that's rich in vitamin C. Also, I love vitamin C crystals. You can get those. Gosh darn it, you can get them on Amazon now. But you can get them at any of your health food stores, your local markets there. But those really vitamin C crystals I really love because they're easy for the body to absorb, and you can just stir them into your water. That tastes kind of like lemon in your water, so it's kind of got a tart, little sour taste. So that's another way. You asked like how to kind of switch up our water, putting some vitamin C in there to where it adds a little flavor and has a ton of health benefits for boosting our immune system.
So you don't mean like reach for a grab a glass of orange juice when you say vitamin C, right, Sarah?
Right. Yes. Thank you.
The glass of orange juice that we're used to, like growing up, like, all right, drink a big thing of orange juice. How many oranges are in there? There's too much sugar for us. So there is when you say vitamin C here, you mean the actual supplement vitamin C.
Absolutely. And also the whole foods, right? So like we talked about juices earlier, they're pasteurized, they're heated to a certain level to where it kills off anything that's good, and they're just left with sugar. So if you're talking orange juice from fresh orange juice, absolutely. But really eating the whole food is going to be more beneficial because it has those fibers in there, again, that help to break down and absorb those sugars. So some foods that are rich in vitamin C are obviously oranges, grapefruits, strawberries, spinach, kiwi, broccoli, green leafy greens. You think about foods that are grown in the sun, that get a lot of sun. that's going to develop the vitamin C. So having a diet that's rich in vitamin C is going to support your immune system. Taking vitamin C as a supplement is going to support your immune system. And then whenever something is coming on, like you kind of feel like, oh, I got that tingle in my throat, or kind of feel a little funny in my tummy, then start really increasing your vitamin C supplement to about like 6,000 to 8,000 milligrams a day. And that's going to help to really boost your immune system. And again, your gut health, because 80% of our immune system it lives in the gut and it's developed in the gut. So when you think of like a healthy gut, it's really a healthy body. And also something really interesting too is about 80% of serotonin is produced in the gut. So when you think of a healthy gut, it's that healthy mind, like we talked about earlier.
Wow, 80% of serotonin is in the gut, like that's where it's developed.
Yeah, isn't that incredible? Because you think serotonin brain, right?
Yeah. So if your gut's happy, you're happier. Like I know you touched about the depression. For me, that was huge after having my second daughter, Rosalie. I had the postpartum, and I was like, all right, I know what I need to do. Like it helped me before jumping on a round of the 30-day and getting myself balanced with the hormones. And that was huge. It really helped me. But so for people that have done that, now they've balanced themselves out. How do they keep themselves healthy and keeping that gut balanced like throughout their life? Because it's not like a one-time thing deal, right? It's not like, okay, I've done it. I've done my round. I'm good to go. Clean gut.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so doing the 30-day program is fantastic, right? It's that kickstart, but really everybody has different needs. So, some clients may have, leaky gut and some really devastating gut issues going on and symptoms going on that really require more than 30 days.
Okay.
So concentrating on really keeping those foods out, those acidic, allergenic, and addictive foods, because they're not beneficial. They really aren't. So adopting like say an 80-20 lifestyle for some it may be they maybe need to concentrate and do the program for 60 to 90 days, even like a year. So realizing that our body, we have done years of damage to it, and it takes time to really heal it. And then so when you're concentrating on healing your gut, you want to heal and seal, right? Because that leaky gut means that there's holes that have happened in our gut, and these particles are now leaking out that should not be leaking into our into our body, which then creates those symptoms. So healing and sealing, and for everybody it's different. But learning what those food sensitivities are, keeping them out of your diet, I would say for about 9 months to a year. And then your body, because it creates new cells and does that full cellular turnover, your body can actually learn to handle something again that you may have had a food sensitivity towards, but the key is not having it every day. So, let's say you take a break from dairy, right? And you take a break for 9 months to a year, right? Because dairy is causing an issue for you. And then you start to reintroduce it back in. And you might find that like having a yogurt, a cultured yogurt, again, that live living food, the good bacteria in it from raw dairy, which is key, that it does well on your body. Well, don't start eating that for breakfast every single morning, right? Like maybe have it like every 4 to 5 days or something like that. Does that make sense?
That is so crazy you mentioned that, because that just happened to Jason, my husband, when he had the other day. I think it was peanuts or something. And he's usually allergic to it, and he didn't know it had peanuts in there. And it's been so long he's been away from peanuts. We've been eating healthier, maintaining this lifestyle for like 4.5 years.
Yeah.
And he ate it, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, I'm fine. I didn't know there was peanuts in that."
Wow. Yeah, that's awesome.
Just don't eat it every day, huh?
Right. Well, I joke and say that, part of my job is to put myself out of business one client at a time, because we really are our best health coach, right? Like we know what makes our bodies feel the way it feels. We know whether or not something makes it feel good or bad. And sometimes you need help getting to that point, right? And that's where that elimination diet really is key. But learning to really listen to your body is like the best thing that you could do for your health. Are you there, Joe? I think we're frozen.
I can't see anything. Oh, yeah, I see her, but there.
Hi, Joe. I see
Can you
you.
hear me?
Yeah.
Yay, you can hear me too.
Okay, good.
Okay. Are we live now again? Are we back on? I think we lost you there. Okay. So I was just asking a question that we had here from Jeremiah. It says, does CBD help? So do you know anything about CBD and how that can help gut health or just being healthy?
Yeah, Jeremiah, I haven't done a lot of research on CBD oil. That's something that I've definitely a little bit more intrigued by. And it's something that I'm researching, but I'm really not at a level of education that I feel comfortable sharing about it yet. So maybe that'll be another show. I'll have learned more, but I'm not familiar with it enough to really give information on it.
No, that's a good question. So definitely maybe for another show, because that's a lot of people are asking those questions too for me. I'm like, I don't really know that much about it either. So, yeah. So if you have any other questions, I don't know if you have any other questions on here. I was kind of looking through, but another question we had was, when should someone take antibiotics? So is there a time that you should say, okay, I've tried these other things, or when should you take them?
Yeah, so obviously there's a need for antibiotics, right? So I'm not saying to completely disregard that, but really antibiotics should be taken kind of as a last resort and in a very severely necessary situation. That's my belief based on my education. Really, there's so many things that the body can heal on its own. Even, for example, I have a tooth that was actually, the roots were actually destroyed from dental work. And so what happened is I was getting kind of an abscess, like that infection that comes from it, right? Because it's basically something dead in my body that my body is now trying to fight because it's dead, right? And the dentist wanted to do a root canal. Well, in my research and studies, learning how, I won't get into everything that entails with it, but how damaging root canals can be to our health too. Because again, our digestive system, it starts in the mouth, and our mouth is the gateway to our bloodstream. So just being really careful about our dental work. So again, I know enough about the body to know that it knows how to heal itself. So I went on a warpath of just really giving my body tons of nutrients to really support and heal that infection. And so I did, of course, prebiotics, probiotics, vitamin C, colloidal silver, cod liver oil. I used essential oils. I used a trampoline. Bouncing on the trampoline helps to release toxins in the body. It helps your adrenals to release those toxins. And then once it's released from your adrenals, then your body can then release the toxins. So bouncing on a trampoline, even your kids in the backyard, doing that for 10 minutes a couple times a day, but really concentrating on healing the body and giving the body what it needs. And it's been 6 years that I've been able to maintain dental health by not having to do, one, those antibiotics, and two, not having to get a root canal. So even our teeth know how to heal themselves. Cavities can be healed. How crazy is that? We're not taught that, right?
Crazy. That is how we taste, from not. Well, I